past me bananas. I'll show you when it's taken. Feels really nice now. No, I didn't bring it.
We're going to the reef today and hopefully I'm going to swim with some turtles, and I've got my underwater camera, so I'm so excited. Hello there my friends, and welcome back to my channel. I hope you've had a lovely start to your year. Mine has actually started with a fair amount of traveling, which is why it's taken me such a long time to get a full painting finished, and this will be the first one of the year, so I'm very excited to bring you along this video and the process of this painting. Here is the finished drawing, which took me a long time, but I'm very happy with how it turned out. Two mermaids and their sea turtle friends swimming past the coral shells. And of course, this is an underwater scene, so we're going to be using a lot of blue in this painting. I wanted to start this off with just a soft wash of the colours, so I actually went in with water all over the paper and then just put that blue around in the background and let it bleed into the other areas very gently. And now, as usual, I'm going to go in with some base colours over every element in the painting. Nothing in this scene is going to be too bright, so I don't have to worry too much about preserving the white of the paper. And on the left of my easel, you'll see my iPad with some references up. Most of them are photos that I took out at the reef, and these are the actual pieces of coral that I referenced for the painting. I also have some other photos pulled up for just inspiration, the colour palettes, and the way that these artists have rendered their works. Just to keep a little direction there for myself when I get a little bit lost. Now, as you will have seen at the beginning of this video, I spent a little over a week in Cairns this January, which is at the very top of Australia in tropical North Queensland. I live in South Australia and it's been a while since I've been back there. It's very different than where I live. So tropical, humid, green, lush. We had a few downpours of rain. We stayed right by the beach and had a beautiful time visiting markets, the rainforest, and of course, the Great Barrier Reef. On my previous trips to the reef, I've only ever visited the islands, and they have quite a lot of coral around, but nothing as spectacular as on this trip, where it was a boat ride to the outer reef and then we swam directly off of the boat. The colour and variety of coral and the clarity of the water were truly otherworldly. We spent about 5 hours that day in the water, and it was like the movies and the brochures that I've seen were real and I was in them. Now, I know in Australia we're very blessed with beautiful beaches and sea life, but we don't have turtles down where I live, so I am very excited every time to see the turtles on my trips to the warmer waters of the north. And they are one of my favourite ocean creatures, so I just knew with this coral reef artwork, I really wanted to centre it around the sea turtles. They are the nomads of the sea, always on the move, yet so at peace no matter where they go, so I really wanted this reflected in their mermaid travelling friends, in the slow flowy movements of their arms and their peaceful expressions. I originally had the idea for this painting over a year ago. If I look back in my 2024 sketchbook, it's right at the beginning that I was starting to sketch out my ideas. I knew from then, and it is something that I've continued into the final piece, that the very important thing I wanted in this painting was to have the mermaids mimicking the sea turtles' movements, with their fins moving up and down in this slow, flowy movement, and I thought the mermaids in their arms could be doing the same thing alongside the turtles. I originally had the idea of it being more of a profile side shot and a landscape artwork, but for various reasons I wanted this piece to be portrait, and I was trying to figure out how I was going to do that. I went a little bit away from this idea when I was thinking of having this as a bird's eye view looking down, the sea turtles swimming next to the mermaids, but then I landed on this idea of having them all coming towards us, and this way it made more sense for my tall portrait composition, and I really liked the idea of all this coral on the side that they're swimming past, and I could still hold on to this idea I always had for the piece of the mermaids and the turtles, fins and arms going up and down. I brought my new underwater camera on this trip, so I hope you've been enjoying these somewhat jittery shots of the beautiful reef. I'm glad I captured all this video footage for the memories, but it was also so handy to have it with me to take photos because I used a lot of those references for this painting, and how cool is that to make an underwater mermaid reef painting and use my own coral references because I went there myself. And I saw such a variety of coral in colours and shapes I can't recall seeing before, like something from another planet. So I tried my best to pick out the main kinds that I remember and looked very symbolic and that I knew I could portray the best that I could in my painting. As far as the technical side of this painting, I didn't really have too much trouble with it, thankfully. I knew this would likely be the case going into the artwork because I had planned the composition accordingly to make it a lot easier for myself, and I did this by keeping things on grouped sort of planes, and I really had 3 groups of elements or 3 planes to the painting to make it easier for myself. We have the background, all this blue ocean behind them, the coral around the edge framing the piece, and then my characters in the middle. Now, of course, within these areas you still have subtle changes and differences in colours and the planes. For example, the characters, I wanted to show that they were sort of on their stomachs coming towards us. So I had the parts of them that were further away, like the legs and the tails, a little more blue toned, and then higher contrast and saturation when coming towards us. But overall, simplifying the composition like this in my head with having these three groups really makes it easier for me when I think about tone, and just in my brain, I suppose, it feels more manageable to paint in this headspace. The main problem that I came across as I continued on with my painting was how to make the sea turtles stand out a little more. As they are one of the stars of this painting, I wanted to make sure they didn't blend in too much with the background, and having the mermaids there too, it was tricky because I feel like they were a bit competing for attention and the mermaids are winning. They have fairer skin and darker hair, so I felt a little higher contrast there, and they're the lightest part of the painting. And so I wanted to remain true to the sea turtle colours and the colours there underwater, which are kind of more dark greens, but then this leads them to blend in a little more with the coral in the background. And you know, I didn't think this was such a bad thing because I was just swimming at the reef with the sea turtles and they blend in really well. Sometimes it can be hard to spot them, but for the purposes of this painting and having them be recognisable and stand out somewhat to the viewer, I didn't want them to feel lost up against the mermaids, and I wanted at least their heads and the top parts of them to be a little more contrasted. What I did was two things to sort of fix this problem. I ended up just wanting higher contrast just within their own faces. So I didn't worry too much about how they interacted with the background, but more, you know, the spots and the eyes on their faces being darker than the skin, and then just having some darks and lights together in the turtles, I feel like brought your attention there more. I also, you'll see later on, brought out some colour pencils right at the end for the bottom turtle, which I feel like he was the one really getting lost, and I wanted to make sure the face was a little bit brighter and standing out to us more. Something I've been doing in my paintings a little more recently is tracing over some of my ink lines, usually around the edges of the characters or objects. During the painting process, I feel like this solidifies the characters a little more to me and creates a little more strength and definition within the painting. I don't know if that makes sense, but I also did this right at the end and went over some of my lines that got lost a little when I had gone over them with some pencils. Which brings me to the coloured pencils. I don't know how to use them amazingly still, but I really did think that they brought some extra colour depth to the painting and just overlaid some colours on other ones and cooled down the shadows even more. And I think it just intensified some of my coral colours even more, though I didn't want them to be too bright. I like the subtle variations of colours all throughout the painting. I think in an imaginary world that mermaids and turtles would be really good friends. And I think, like people, that there would be many different personalities and kinds of mermaids. So I think the peaceful, carefree, hippie mermaids would hang out with the turtles and they would just wander together. And I don't know a whole lot about turtles, but I think, you know, they're quite used to this lifestyle after being left alone at birth and having to make their way back home out in the sea all alone. So I think, you know, I think of mermaids kind of doing the same sometimes, or a certain type of them, so the mermaids and the turtles can travel the seas together. I think I'll always remember this trip to the reef very fondly, but where time passes and I might forget, I have my videos and now this painting to remind me of what a lovely time it was. And this is one of the reasons I really like to make artworks inspired by my own life, and of course make them a little more magically enhanced. Granted, I didn't see any mermaids while I was there, but this is very much how I felt when swimming around with the sea life past all the beautiful coral. How wonderful it would be to live as a mermaid and swim around down there longer than as long as I can hold my breath. the coral reef painting is finished at last after being in my head for a year or so. And I am of course making prints of this artwork. By the time you see this video, they're already up in my shop, so the link is down below. Please go check it out if you would like a print of this piece, Nomads of the Reef. Thanks so much for watching this video and following along with my art. I am very appreciative of any and all support and the kind, lovely words. Thank you. And I hope you've all had a good start to your year. I know the first few months can seem a little dull and aimless sometimes, so I am sending my best wishes for March and on to the rest of the year. And I'll talk to you in my next video. Goodbye.